Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me on Their Fight Story with Igdalia. If you are new here and you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. Today we have another amazing guest, a professional MMA fighter, Annette Nichols. Annette, how are you doing today?
I am doing well.
Now, the last time I talked to you,
Mhm.
you weren't sure if you were going to be fighting because you were injured during sparring, but then you ended up fighting.
So I was supposed to have a fight announcement. I wanted to do it on with you, and then I got injured probably a little over 4 weeks before my fight was supposed to happen. And so I was just like we were just sparring, doing MMA sparring, and I had put my teammate into a calf slicer, which I was very excited about, by the way. Anyway, so she's working out of it, and my knee makes like three really loud pops, and I was like, uh-oh. And I immediately felt sick, and I was like, oh dear. So anyways, I go in, and I'm kind of trying to keep it like on the down low. I think this is also a very common thing among MMA fighters.
Yeah,
Like if we don't say it, it's not real.
exactly. Yes.
I go in, and they're just like, yeah, they do an MRI. And I have an MCL tear. My knee is dislocated, and I had a meniscus tear as well. And so I was debating back and forth because here I am, like 4 weeks out from a fight, and the doctors are like, "No, that's not a good idea, of course." And I'm like, "Is it though?"
Exactly. Like, I feel like I can.
Right? I feel like I can. So I just spend the next few weeks just working really hard on my takedown defense because and yeah, and just doing so much rehab. I have to say a big shout out to I have a girlfriend. She has a team out in Dallas, and they're unaffiliated athletics. Jessica Miramontes and her wife Katie Strite really helped me, just giving me a lot of information on and just being super encouraging to help me kind of work through the mental side of it. And so I just did a lot of just basically what I kind of graduated up in terms of what I was like allowing my knee to go through. And then that night I was just like, okay, we'll see what happens. So I had already planned, like, I'm not going to the ground, because I was having trouble in sparring getting up. And so if I tried to get up on that leg, I couldn't, like, I had a lot of instability.
Yeah.
So we just kind of decided, I wasn't going to switch stances, which had become part of my game. I wasn't going to switch stances because that would put my right leg forward, things like that. And that I was just going to just sit and bang, which is what I do anyway. So that worked out. And thankfully, she tried to take me down like a couple of times, and I was able to stop the takedown. And then she didn't seem really interested in taking it out. She actually ended up catching my leg. And one of the things I had been drilling is if someone caught my leg, that I would just drop, like I would just fall, like if I ended up on one leg, because I would be standing on my right leg.
Yeah.
I wasn't kicking with my left because it was my right. So. And I fell down, and I'm like, you can kind of see me pause, like, am I okay? You know what I mean? She didn't come to the ground with me, thank goodness. Yeah. She let me get back up, and I was just like, okay, it's holding up. So then I just kind of just was like, I guess we're here now, So I just started, we just fought basically. So, but yeah, so that ended up being such a crazy experience because the whole time I was like, my knee's going to go out, my knee's going to go out, then I'm going to, have to go to the doctor. But they were really sweet. The surgeon was like, well, we know you're going to do this anyway. So he was just like, so if you wreck it all, we will fix it. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
So, but it held up. And so all of that physical therapy I was doing for hours a day seemed to help it out. And so, yeah. And then I've just been recovering ever since, pretty much just trying to like let it fully heal. And
so no surgery is needed.
He said, so this is the deal. So I don't know if you knew, but I actually, I retired at my last fight. So I had been planning a little bit to do that. I had been thinking about it for a while. And so I had, hoping I was going to win, which ended up being a split decision. But it was a great fight and I really enjoyed it. But the surgeon had said, if you decide to stay, if you decide to continue, we'll have to fix it because you're just not going to be able to take any kind of impact, right? No direct impact to that leg. So he basically said, like, for what I'm trying to do right now, as long as I'm not like wanting to go back full time, if I want to just continue to train, that's okay. And then, there's still risk, obviously.
Yeah.
But as long as I don't actually want to compete again, like I should be able to just continue my physical therapy and hopefully, fingers crossed, not have to get the surgery. So that's what we're hoping for.
So are you retired or potentially retired?
So I think I am retired. So
You are.
my coach was actually really upset because my last fight, I had shown so much improvement in his
Yeah.
eyes, and he was very excited to see. And I really did feel great, in terms of, especially considering the circumstances. I felt
Yeah.
really good. I felt very confident. I felt very like with it in the
Hmm.
cage. I was able to, like implement the game plan. I was able to kind of stay, okay, oh, can't do that,
Hmm.
and work with my limitations and really, I don't think anyone was able to really pick up on it that didn't know,
Hmm.
and so for that, I was like really happy about that. I saw myself implementing a lot of the things we've been practicing. And so he was basically saying, like, you owe it to the game to come back,
Yeah.
and he was just like, so, it's not that it's completely out of the
Yeah.
question at this point. Definitely taking a step back right now, just
Hmm.
because I do want to let my body like completely heal as much as possible and avoid a surgery if I can.
Yeah.
And then, I do have some things that I'm working on right now that I want to give my time and attention to. And I felt like with how much I was training, because I'm the kind of person that don't ever do anything like not
Yeah.
100%.
I hear you.
So she's like, I hear you. That's rare.
Yeah. It's like,
So, it's like I'm trying to open up a school right now. That's been my dream for a
nice. What
long
kind of
time.
school?
It's a farm school, so it's an integrated farm school. So the kids would basically, it's preschool through second grade, and they
Nice.
use like the farming concepts to learn
Yes.
academic like concepts. So, like let's say little kids are learning about counting, like adding or something. We
Yeah.
would we would learn that concept in class during the day. Then we would go out there and we would count the eggs from the chickens, and we
Hmm.
count the animals and different things like that. So it just gives you like this really hands-on, like meaningful type of
Yeah.
learning that a lot of kids are kind of missing nowadays
Oh,
in
yeah.
this very worksheet technology based kind of academic
Hmm.
environment. So that's really the goal, is to create like a really fun interactive
Yeah.
environment where kids are able to make like academic stuff more like meaningful to their own lives. So
And that's
really
actually good
different than
therapy, isn't
maybe
it?
huh?
Isn't it good therapy?
Yeah, and a lot of it is has to do with that. So, I don't know if you've heard a lot about like kind of like trauma sensitive
Hmm.
like schooling. So it's
Yes.
very like kind of moving towards that, where it's an
Yeah.
environment that's created to be really, really safe, where
Yeah.
children are able to essentially learn how to interact with their
Hmm.
environments and really have kind of like find their place again and
Hmm.
their own pace, at their
Yes.
own pace, and like because a lot of times I think kids, especially kids who have been heavily traumatized, they
Hmm.
just don't, or that have like learning disabilities or behavioral issues, those kind of things. They need to know that they have a purpose. They need to see
Yes.
meaning and purpose in the things they do. They need to know where their place is, and they need
Hmm.
to feel really safe. And so it's like creating that environment where they have their own like
Hmm.
responsibilities, and they're responsible for this animal or they're responsible for this function of the farm. And so it gives them a sense of like, when you're not here, like something's missing,
Yeah.
So that kind of, it gives them that sense of I'm important to the process,
Yes.
and I just feel like for me, I'm not big on being inside a lot. And so like I love to be outside. It doesn't matter what weather is or anything. And kids mostly are like that as well. And so I feel like learning outside is just, there's something really healing about
There
nature,
is.
and there's something really healing about animals,
Yes.
and so I feel like when you get to have that interaction throughout your day, it's just like a part of you that gets to grow in a
Hmm.
really unique way that you can't do in like a traditional classroom setting.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading how important it is, to be outside when you're trying to heal and recover, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like your energy with the earth, and like if you're
Mm-hmm.
going through certain things, like you just take off your shoes and you walk around on the grass, or
Mm-hmm.
you can work in the yard. And I am like the worst person, like the worst person to work on anything having to do with like outdoors. And one, I have allergies beyond control, but like I can't grow anything. And they're like, oh yeah, this is like the best thing, you can't kill this, give it to me and I'll, believe me, it's gonna die. You know what I mean? And I totally suck at it, but it was so like rewarding
Mm-hmm.
and so like therapeutic, just working, either pulling the weeds or planting flat, which I plant them and then I forget to water them. So it kind of like defeats the purpose. But it's really therapeutic. It doesn't even matter if they come out great or not. It's just there's something when you connect with nature again that
Mm-hmm.
is it's a healing. The right terminology I can't remember, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's also the tactile nature of it. So one of the things that happens when you have trauma is that you get very disassociated from your body.
Hmm.
And that's just part of the trauma, right? It's like something really bad's happening to my body. And so I'm going to get in my head. Like I'm going to kind
Hmm.
of space out because I can't bear it. So we become very disconnected with our bodies. And so when we work with nature and we're like touching things and we're fixing things,
Yeah.
it forces us to reconnect with our bodies in a way that we haven't really been able to do because of the
Hmm.
trauma, because we had to go away from our
Yes.
bodies in order to survive the trauma. So part of that's just reconnecting our bodies and our brains to each other again
Hmm.
and allowing us to feel sensations again, which then is like that's part of the healing process
Hmm.
because we need to be connected to our bodies. Without being connected to our bodies, that's why you'll notice people who have a lot of trauma are very clumsy and things like that
Hmm.
because they're disconnected from their body. And it's a defense mechanism. It's kind of a coping mechanism, right?
Yes.
So as we heal, we have to reform that connection. So if you allow children who have been through trauma or who have issues where they don't have a good connection with their bodies, which a lot
Hmm.
of autistic kids and things like that have, it allows them to reconnect in a healthy way. Kind of like practice that, you
Hmm.
know? And it's just like, well, how does that feel? Like, and a lot of them won't even know, like they won't feel things. You could put a traumatized child's hand in the water, for example, and they wouldn't feel it. They wouldn't know the difference. But if you think about it in terms of like being victimized in the future or
Hmm.
being able to have a healthy relationship even in the future, if you're so disconnected from your body, how do you have a healthy relationship with your children?
Hmm.
Like how do you learn to connect to your children because you can't even connect to your own body,
Yeah.
right? And so those kind of environments are very conducive to allow like a safe place to learn to reconnect. And that's really a big part of like the hands-on approach. And we don't
Hmm.
have that because our whole environment every day is so disconnected.
Hmm.
We're so disconnected from each other. We're so disconnected from just people in the classroom or any kind of
Yeah.
textile. We don't go outside, so we don't touch anything that feels
Hmm.
different. And so we're just naturally not going to have a lot of opportunities to do that. So this kind of environment is just conducive to that in a way that's like less threatening, right?
Hmm.
You don't want that first interaction where you're trying to reconnect with your body to be like a sexual experience, which is going
Yeah.
to be extremely, like for someone who's been sexually traumatized, going to be way too much, right?
Yeah.
Even in a healthy setting. So it's like you're giving a child the opportunity to be like, hey, I can touch this fluffy chicken. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's like they can feel themselves feeling things that are not going to hurt them. And they can see how they can connect to something alive that's not going to hurt their feelings to kind of help them to make that connection that's really healthy for their healing process.
It is because it's like a lot of times one of our coping and grounding techniques is when you feel like you're disassociating and you feel like you're going through a trigger or a flashback. They tell you grab something cold, or if you
Mhm.
have like a blanket that's fuzzy, just feel
Mhm.
it. So it kind of like
Mhm.
brings that connection and
Mhm.
brings you back into reality as best you can. And
Mhm.
it's amazing that you've decided to do this. What inspired you?
So lots of different little things. So I've been teaching for quite a while, since about, I think I want to say like 2012. So my degree is in psychology. So that kind
Mm-hmm.
of was like, I got really into like learning psychology and trauma and things like that from that. So I've had a lot of clients that have like autism and different behavioral things. And I started noticing early on that kids just did so well with hands-on. Like I had kids that were just really, really aggressive and things like that. And it was so interesting to see that just giving them that tactile kind of experience just changed so much the way that they were able to process things. And so that was kind of the way that we kind of that started that type of thing. And I come from a background, I've had a lot of personal trauma in my own life.
Hmm.
So I'm very empathetic. It's so interesting to me when I talk to a student for the first time, and some of my students are adults, and just in talking to them, I'll immediately recognize trauma. Like it's just
Yeah.
because when you've had trauma in your own life, you're really sensitive to it.
Hmm.
Like we kind of have a radar for each other,
Yeah.
right? And so we'll always pick the traumatic, the ones that have experienced the traumatic experiences in the room.
Yes.
It's like
Yes. Believe it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so I've had even conversations with them where they'll say, I just don't understand why it's like this is going on or that is going on. And they'll think it's related to their academics. And I'll
Hmm.
say, that concept is a concept that's traditionally learned in, let's say, third grade, right? What
Hmm.
happened to you in third grade? And they'll just really be surprised. And they'll be like, well, this happened in my life at that point in time. And I'll say, well, yeah, you disassociated probably
Hmm.
the majority of that year, right? And so you
Exactly.
probably have no connection to the memories, and so you missed third grade. So
Yeah.
multiplication is probably going to be not there, right? So,
Yeah.
but people don't recognize that when you disassociate everything. It's not very selective, you disassociate a lot of things, and so and a lot of times trauma happens in the home, so it's like you're gonna disassociate a lot of your experience, especially as a child, right? And so that's kind of the reason then. So that kind of connected me to that. And then my own personal
Hmm.
experiences kind of put that all together. I was like, how do I create an environment? Because learning is so important,
Hmm.
right? Education is so important. And people tend to think it almost like, oh, it's important because you get like, you can get a job, or, you can do these types of things. And I think that's true, right? It's part of the picture. But really for me, learning is just like, because it gives you a voice,
Hmm.
right? And so it's like, it gives you the ability to communicate, right? It's like I tell my kids all the time, like, why am I learning this vocabulary now? It's like, because vocabulary gives you the means by which to express yourself,
Yes.
right? And the better your vocabulary is, the easier you can express yourself. And the world needs to know what you have to say,
Hmm.
And it's
Exactly.
always amazing to me how much they're like, they do. And I'm like, yes, you need to know you have something to contribute. And if
Yeah.
you can't communicate to me because you lack the words, right? Then we miss out on you, and the world's not going to be nearly as good as it could have been. And that kind of gives them like the incentive to learn how to communicate. So it's not just about learning how to read or learning
Hmm.
how to write or learning the vocabulary, it's learning how to communicate. Let's face it, I
Yeah,
get very
because
emotional when I talk about this
no,
stuff.
because it helps once
Don't
we
cry.
because it's so important. It's like once the person can really understand themselves, because it's like there's been a time and place where we've been shut down
Yes.
and our voice was lost
Uh-huh.
and we no longer exist. Like in our minds, we no longer exist. We are just here floating around. We don't understand. So if like we cannot understand who we are, we
Mm-hmm.
can't communicate it.
Mm-hmm.
And once we are able to even give this back to the kids or even young adults, even adults, we
Mm-hmm.
give them the okay, hey, it's okay, you have a voice. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, you see me?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you can see me. Like, oh my God, like I'm
Yeah.
here, like you acknowledge me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the smallest thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
that missing piece, it's that missing link that the person needs
Mm-hmm.
to be able to put everything together. That little piece
Mm-hmm.
that completes that puzzle
Mm-hmm.
is the ability to be known, the ability that somebody actually knows your name, the ability that somebody can see you and smile and be
Mm-hmm.
like, you're like, oh my God, like somebody
They
saw me.
see.
Like,
They
yeah.
see. Yeah.
So you're no longer, it kind of like brings you back, like as you are disassociating or the person
Mhm,
is disassociating and somebody like acknowledges them, like, hey, I see you. Like, where are you
mhm,
going? Like, oh, wait, what? You saw
mhm,
me? Oh, okay. So they come back. And
mhm,
then since this particular person noticed them,
mhm,
they want to talk and they want to express themselves. And that's what motivates them. But
mhm,
at the same time, we have to also teach
mhm,
that there's a time and place for everything. Because when a person has been shut down for so long, the
mhm.
first person that is giving them the attention to listen, they'll like blurt everything out. Do you know what I mean? Because they're like, ah!
Yeah, yeah. No, I've definitely had
Like,
those people.
whoa.
It's so funny because to me, it's like, I always tell people like that. It's like one of my ongoing jokes is let's get to know somebody, and I'm like, so okay, blah blah blah, and I'm like, tell me all your secrets. Like, what? I was like, tell me all your secrets. I want to hear it all. And so, but it's one of the things I absolutely love. Like when I see somebody and they just start telling me everything,
Hmm.
just because I know, like you said, I know what that's like
Yeah.
to feel locked into myself. And so when someone they'll just like, and it's like they'll blurt everything out and they'll say everything, and then all of a sudden it's like it occurs to them that they just did something they don't
Exactly.
do. You know what I'm saying? And I'll just be like, come back to me, like, come back to me. You're okay. You know what I'm saying? But that's one of the things I actually really love. A lot of times I feel like, people start out as my students and then we'll just
Yeah.
end up we'll be so close. Like they'll tell
Yeah.
me so many things. And it's a lot of times I'll realize that most of what people think is academic is psychological.
Yeah.
And once we can get through that, like the academics will fall into
Oh my,
place because
yes.
it's that disconnect. There's just so much other stuff going on. It's just that, we see the symptoms,
Hmm.
we don't tend to see the disease. And so, a lot of times when we've talked, we'll talk through things. And once I see the source, we'll kind of work our way to that source. And then
Hmm.
once I've established that trust, we're able to work through that stuff. And then the academic will usually come in line.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because they feel like they have a purpose.
Yeah. And so once I see that, it's like, okay, like, and that's kind of what also helped me want to do this type of situation, because I felt like, there's really no point in really focusing on the academic till we can get you to a place to where you even understand like the why,
Hmm.
and where you even feel safe enough to like explore and learn. Because those kind of things, they're just so high up on the, you could say like Maslow's hierarchy of
Yes.
needs, right? It's just so high up there. And if you don't even feel safe, we're never
Yeah.
going to get there.
That's the
You have to
key.
start
Yeah.
somewhere where that relationship between a teacher and a student and the
Hmm.
environment of learning, you have to feel so safe, because you
Yeah.
have to be able to fail. And failure is something that you can't do if you don't feel safe.
Exactly.
Taking risks are just never going to happen. So it's like those kind of things that really kind of spur me into like wanting to do this kind of thing.
When are you looking to open it or start it or?
Yeah, so probably 2 to 3 years, because I'd have to establish the property itself. Kind of in the works right now, creating the whole entity. It would be a nonprofit,
Hmm.
and so I have a lot of people kind of working on different parts of it to get certain parts of it set up, and then looking into like hiring and things like that. But there's a lot of things that have to be put into place for sure to get something started like this.
Yeah.
And then especially when you're working with certain populations, it makes it more complicated
Hmm.
in terms of making sure that the environment is safe for, children who have autism, for example, things like that.
Hmm.
Just because there will be, autistic children, for example, a lot of times are drawn to certain things that can be dangerous for them. They have a lot of kind of involuntary muscular behaviors, and so just being able to create an environment that they can still participate in, because I do want them to benefit, but also
Hmm.
finding a way to make sure it's like safe for them.
Yes.
So there's a lot of considerations in putting that stuff together. But that's so probably 2 to 3 years is kind of what we're looking at. Plus, I need to set the farm up itself. And
Yeah.
I'm like you. I mean, I'm getting better at the not killing plant thing over time, But I think a lot of that has to do with trauma and dissociation a little bit. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of difficult for me, just as it's difficult for me to sometimes recognize what I need.
Yeah.
It's difficult for me to see sometimes what my plants need. So,
They're the worst. Oh my god! I bought two raspberry bushes, and I'm like, these are the best things ever.
uh,
And then my sister's like, "Did you plant them?" I was like, "No, they're on the porch." Like, no, I didn't. She's like, "Well," I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna water them." So then, me being because I'm so
mhm,
smart, I moved them so like the wind wouldn't come and knock them over. Okay,
uh-huh,
so I'm like,
uh-huh,
"Yeah, it's gonna be raining. It's not, dude." I put them like right under,
uh-huh,
like the overhang of the roof,
uh-huh.
so there was no water.
So she's
Like
like, it's raining every
no,
day. I don't know why they're dying.
they were dead. They were like, I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like, okay,
yeah,
well, I made it so they wouldn't dry out because of the
yeah,
sun,
right.
but there's no water.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah, they
great. Yeah,
don't tend to water themselves very well.
yeah. Exactly. So,
Yeah, it's totally just, I was talking to somebody else. I was like, everything I have is annuals. And he was like, or, he was just like, no perennials. And I was like, no, I buy perennials. They just only last a year. And it was just like, my mentor is like, I don't think that's going to be very good for your farm. And I was like, I'm working on it.
exactly. That's why you're taking your time.
But yeah, so hopefully once I'm planting more into the ground, I've definitely found more success in planting into the ground instead of pots. That's been, an improvement, because the sun is there and the water is there more readily. So that seems to help. And they can put their roots down really far to get more
Exactly.
water.
Yes.
So that's smart. So plants are smart. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's kind
It's
of
like,
where
but
I'm
we learn
at.
so much from it
Hmm.
because they say, it needs water and it needs the
Hmm.
sun.
Hmm.
And, sometimes they say if you talk to them, they
Oh, Brant
respond.
talks to them. Brant talks to all the plants.
I'm sure he does.
He's like, hi there, little fella. How's guys today? I just like, yeah. He's like, they really like it.
People always give me plants, and I'm just like, seriously, like,
Yeah.
a thank you is perfectly fine with me. Like, thank
Uh,
you is fine. Don't give me plants. Like, they're gonna die, and then I'm gonna feel guilty because you took the time to pick them out for me,
yeah.
and And
Mhm.
I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting. Like once your school is open, I will go visit. I'll take a trip over there.
That'd be great.
I'll take allergy pills to make sure that I can handle it, and we good. You know what I mean?
Right?
I'll
Then
bring you
you're
a
like
plan.
happy. Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time. I really
Yes.
appreciate it. Do you have anything you would like to share before we conclude?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of it in terms of the fighting stuff, I just want to say I'm so grateful for that
Mhm.
experience. I think that I'm so grateful for women that are doing this sport and, that I feel like it's such a big part of what's made me have the confidence I need to really
Mhm.
move forward in my life. And it was like the perfect thing at a perfect time, you know? And so I'm so grateful to see like how much it's grown and how much women in the sport has grown and how women are coming along like you that support other women in the
Mhm.
sport. And I think that's something that's really beautiful. And I think in terms of like especially when it comes to domestic violence and different things that you've experienced in trauma and things like that, like this sport can really be a great way if you can. I mean, it's tricky, right? There's a lot of tricky aspects of it, but I know for me that was a big part of what like led to my recovery. And of course,
Mhm.
you're always, to me, you're always kind of recovering from those
Mhm.
types of things. You're going to be different for it, but there's an aspect of it. I think that I was talking to my son about it, and he was saying, he was like, what do you think has been like the biggest impact for you in terms of like the things that you've gone through and stuff? And I was like, empathy.
Mhm.
I think I have a lot of empathy. And I think that I think it's a gift that I can
Mhm.
go into a room and I can pick another person like me. But I can be that safe space. I always tell people like being able to be someone else's safe space is the
Mhm.
greatest honor for me because I know how much that takes. So when someone tells me their story, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have told you all this stuff about me. I'm like, you don't understand how much it means to me that
Mhm.
you think I can be that safe space for you. Like that is the biggest honor another person can give me is to say, I saw you and I told you my story
Mhm.
because I knew you were a safe space, And so hopefully my story, your story, our stories collectively allow women to realize that like there's so much more and that you're not a broken thing, you're not a forever lost thing, right? You even in the healed version of you, which is a process, it's like it is more for what you've been through, and you will have the kind of empathy and the kind of heart that and the kind of strength and
Mhm.
resilience that you can't get any other way. And it's going to make you such a precious person in a world that so desperately needs people like us
Mhm.
that have that heart to see that and the heart to serve that group of people, that group of hurting people. So that's really what I would say to kind of like conclude things. So, and hopefully, and again, like, I mean, I love to hear people's stories. So if you hear this story and you're like, hey, I haven't had the courage to tell someone my story, I know I'm speaking for me, and I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for you. Like, reach out to us, DM us, tell us, and if you want somebody to talk to or need somebody to talk to about any of those things, fighting, gardening, obviously not gardening. It's like, fighting, anything like the domestic violence, trauma, anything like that. We would love to be here for you and love to talk to you and hear your story and be that safe place for you. So that's about it. So I hope everyone
That's
has a
beautiful.
wonderful day. And thank you for interviewing me. It's always such
Thank
a pleasure.
you. Thank you for your time. And like you said, it's a 2-for-1 deal if they want it. They can
Yes.
pick either one of us, both of us. But as gardening and stuff, I can tell you how to kill it.
She's like, if you're trying to get rid of a plant, like I got you.
I got you. I got you
Contact
on
me.
that
I will
one.
tell you. I will tell you how to drown it and then like make it die of thirst. So it will think it's in the desert and then it made it to an oasis.
Exactly.
And then back in the desert.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.